Hello and welcome back, my friend. We are hanging out in the kitchen again this week. I'm filling my freezer with a month of ready-to-go breakfast, perfect for those busy mornings, or maybe not so busy mornings where I might want to relax for a moment. Sometimes my to-do list is long and I just want to get to it, and sometimes we have to grab something and eat on the go. No matter the case, I want to make sure we start off our mornings right with a good homemade breakfast. To start off, I'd like to share with you how I like to stretch eggs for something like scrambled eggs, because we all know how expensive eggs are right now, and this allows me to use about half the amount of eggs I normally would. So for every egg, I will add in 3 tablespoons of a thick dairy product. I love to use cottage cheese. Ricotta cheese is also good. You could even use cream cheese or sour cream. This is just going to make your eggs go further. They're still going to set up perfectly because it's a thicker dairy product. You could use heavy cream or milk, but you're going to end up with a runnier egg. These are super delicious and they will make the eggs even creamier and richer. I don't think it alters the flavor too much. Honestly, they're really good. And then I just add in my seasonings, some salt and some onion powder, and I scramble them up as usual. First though, I'm going to brown up some breakfast sausage. This is just a country sausage from our pig, and I'm going to brown that up and remove that from the pan, and then I'm going to start to scramble my eggs. Now I'm only going to soft scramble these because we're going to be baking them further, so I don't want them fully cooked and then drying out in the oven. So I'm going to get them going here. I'm going to add a couple handfuls of spinach just torn up and some cheese. So for this breakfast, I am making, I don't know if I want to call them a turnover or like a hot pocket type breakfast sandwich. They're going to be for my husband. Really, this entire video is dedicated to my husband. He has a new job, just started this past week on Monday, and it's been a bit of an adjustment because he's getting up much earlier. He's leaving the house here about 5:15, 5:30, and he's not eating breakfast before he goes. At his previous job, I would get up with him about 6:30, and I'd make breakfast for him, and we'd eat together, and then I'd see him off. But that is just not happening anymore. That's a bit too early for us to eat, so I need to get the freezer full of some ready-to-go breakfast for him because he will be taking these to work and eating them there. So once my eggs were soft scrambled, I added that sausage back in. So the filling is ready. Now we're going to get the pastry sheets ready to go. I don't usually buy things like this from the store. They're not very good for you. They don't have the best ingredients, but I have these in my freezer from Christmas yet because I buy them every once in a while around the holidays for a special recipe. So they were already in there. I figured I would use them. Otherwise, I would just make up a batch of my pie crust and use that instead. So I've divided that pastry sheet into 4 equal rectangles. I'm going to put some filling on one side. I'm going to apply a little bit of water around the edges and then seal that second half over. I'm going to use a fork to crimp, and then I'm going to score the top just so that some air can escape if needed. And if I was using the pie crust, I'd do the same thing. I would just roll it out into a rectangle, cut that into smaller rectangles, and do exactly as I am doing here. Just in case you need one, I will put my pie crust recipe down in the description for you. These will go into a 350-degree oven for about 15 to 20 minutes or until the pastry sheets are golden brown, and I'd say about the same time for pie crust as well. The next recipe is some homemade granola. I'm going to make Matt some yogurt and fruit parfaits, and we're going to top it off with some granola to go along with those breakfast turnover Hot Pocket things. Homemade granola is so simple to make. It's going to taste so much better than what you can get at the store, and it's going to be a lot better for you, not to mention way more affordable to make it on your own. You just need 1 cup of coconut oil, a 1/3 cup of honey, and a 1/3 cup of maple syrup. And then you want to go and melt all of that down. You can pop it over the stove in a saucepan or into the microwave. Then I'm going to add a 1/2 teaspoon, I probably added more like a teaspoon, of vanilla. I tend to be pretty heavy-handed with my vanilla because we love it. You also need a little pinch of salt, probably about 1/4 teaspoon, and then we're going to add some add-ins. You can customize this however you like with whatever nuts or seeds you may want. I did a 1/2 cup of organic sprouted pumpkin seeds and a 3/4 cup of chopped pecans. Now we're just going to go in with some oats. I am using organic sprouted rolled oats. I get these from Costco. They're much better for you being sprouted. They're easier to digest, and these are also glyphosate free, which is super important to me. So we're doing 4 cups. This will bake at 300 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes. You do want to check it every 10 minutes and stir it, making sure everything is baking evenly. It can get very brown very quickly towards the end, so keep an eye on it. Now for the yogurt parfaits. This is very semi-homemade. I do know how to make my own yogurt. I actually have a video out on that. I can link it here on the screen and down in the description. But I needed quick and simple this week. I was very short on time, so I just got this from one of my local farmers. They have their own little farm stand, and they have the most amazing raw milk Greek yogurt. So I have some strawberry and some vanilla here. I'm going to do strawberry on the bottom. And then this is a great way to use up some extra frozen fruits. I have so many strawberries and raspberries left from last year's garden, so this has been a great way for me to use them up. I like to add a layer of fruit in the center, and then I'll top it off with the vanilla yogurt, and then I always leave a little space for some of the granola. Anytime I am freezing something, I usually wrap it in saran wrap. I don't love that. I don't love using the plastic, but I find it's the best way to keep it fresh. And I will then put it into a separate bag as well. I did purchase some reusable silicone freezer bags that I will just pop those little turnovers into as well. For Matt's breakfast this week, I'm just going to fill this 1 container of granola, and then he can refill that as the week goes on, and I'll just keep the rest of it in a big container. All right, I have a little bit more time today now. I can work on a few more projects for the freezer. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to get some English muffin dough ready here. So I like to buy my yeast in bulk. It's much more affordable, and then I store it in the freezer. The freezer keeps it nice and fresh. So this English muffin recipe I have shared maybe once before. It's very doable, not hard at all, and I'm going to take you step by step through it. For the dough, I'm going to add 1 1/4 cup of warm water, not hot. Hot will kill off your yeast. You're going to need 1 1/4 teaspoons of the active dry yeast. Oops, I almost did 2. That would have been bad. Okay. And I'm going to need 1 tablespoon of some cane sugar here. This is going to feed our yeast, wake it up a bit. Okay, and we just allow that to sit and mingle until we see some bubbles. We have achieved bubbles. So now I will add 2 tablespoons of mostly melted butter. We need 2 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour and 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm using Redmond real salt. Now I'm going to allow this to mix here with the dough hook attachment for about 5 minutes. If you aren't using a stand mixer like this, you can totally knead it by hand. I have this beautiful dough ball now. It's a soft, pillowy dough. It's quite lovely. I am now just gonna put a little drizzle of olive oil in here. Place my dough in here. I'm gonna get a towel and cover this for about an hour. Alrighty, on to the next recipe while we wait for that dough to rise. I am going to chop up an onion here, and I'm going to cook this up along with some breakfast sausage. I have some pork sausage from our pig that we raised. Well, we didn't raise it, our friends raised it, but we helped butcher it. And I believe I have out its maple sausage, but you can use any flavor breakfast sausage you want. And we're gonna cook those things up, and we're going to basically make some sausage gravy for a casserole, a very simple casserole. I'm trying to find a few recipes that don't require eggs right now, trying to save you guys some money. This is a very simple thing to just quickly throw together. It's very filling and very yummy. So I'm just gonna brown this sausage up and get these onions cooked. For some veggies, I went and I grabbed my freeze-dried bell peppers from the garden. So I'm gonna just take these out of here. I'm gonna break them up a little bit, and I'm gonna add just a little bit of water. They're gonna need some for rehydration. But obviously you can add fresh peppers or no peppers at all. Now we're gonna get ready to make the gravy. So I'm gonna put in 2 tablespoons of flour. If you are gluten-free, you can use a 1-to-1 gluten-free flour. Now in my last video, many of you are very concerned that I use the same spoon for both the gluten-free and the regular flour. I'm not celiac. This is more preference and for health reasons. Right now I'm on a certain protocol, so no worries there. I'm gonna stir in that flour. I'm gonna grab some milk. Again, if you are dairy-free, you can use whatever dairy-free alternative you like. I'm gonna slowly add in 1.5 cups of milk. So the rest of this dish is just some shredded potatoes, hash browns. I had these in my freezer, so I'm going to use them. Otherwise, I would just be shredding up some potatoes. And I'd probably rinse them really well before putting them in this dish. So I've got a little bit of olive oil on the bottom of my pan here. These are gonna get dumped in. This is a 26-ounce bag. And they are completely frozen, going right into this dish. Gonna sprinkle them with some of my Redmond real salt. Okay, and then a sausage gravy. You see that? Yep, is going to go right over the top. Of course, if you know me, we're going to add some cheese. So I have a cup of freshly shredded Colby Jack cheese going on here. This is going to go into a 350-degree oven for about 35 minutes. Here is the dough. It has doubled in size after an hour. So I'm going to take it out of here and we're going to knead it just a little bit. I'm going to take my dough now. I'm going to divide it into 10 equal portions. So let's see here. Take one of these and I'm going to shape it the best I can into a nice round ball. It does not have to be Perfect. And then over here I have a parchment lined cookie sheet with a little bit of cornmeal sprinkled on it. I'm going to place this down here, put a little bit of water onto my fingers here, and I'm going to press it out, flattening it a bit into more of an English muffin shape. Some more cornmeal gets sprinkled on the top. I'm going to cover these with a towel, and these are going to rise again for another 20 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to get to work on the filling for these English muffins. I am going to use some eggs. I'm not going to use an egg per sandwich, though. I will have 10 sandwiches. I'm going to try and get away with 7 eggs for those 10 sandwiches. I'm going to stretch it a little bit with some milk, no more than a 1/4 cup. Any more than that, it will not set up very well. Some salt, some onion powder, maybe a little bit of garlic powder. This is a time I love to go through my fridge and see what kind of produce I have in there, making sure nothing is going to waste. I had some cherry tomatoes from last week, so those got chopped up and put in, and I have a whole bunch of spinach, so that got torn up as well. About 2 handfuls of the spinach and probably a cup of cherry tomatoes. This just gets poured onto a baking sheet. I love making the filling for any breakfast sandwich on a baking sheet. I can just cut it up really easily then, and it's just, it's no hassle. The oven does the work for me. So this just gets spread out evenly and put into the oven at 350 for about 12 to 15 minutes, or until, they're set. The English muffins have finished rising for that 20 minutes. Now they are ready to get cooked. These get cooked in a skillet. So I've had my skillet preheating just over low heat. I'm going to put a few of these guys in here. There's just a little bit of olive oil on the bottom of the pan. I'm going to cover it and set my timer for 9 minutes. After the 9 minutes, they get flipped, the lid goes back on, and they will cook for an additional 5 minutes. You do want to be gentle during this whole process and try not to deflate any air bubbles that were created in that rising process. That is going to give you more nooks and crannies. Now, when they're done cooking and they have cooled, the best way to achieve those nooks and crannies is by using a fork to slice it, if you will. Now, to be completely honest, sometimes this recipe is hit or miss when it comes to the nooks and crannies. Today was an okay day. I've had better days, and I've had days where there weren't any. It's probably just an error on my part. I was rushing, or I wasn't gentle enough when I was putting them in the pan or flipping them, so do try to be gentle. For the sandwiches, I just sliced up some Colby Jack cheese. That went on. I put 2 pieces of the eggs that I had cut up there, and I had fried up some bacon. And that is going to be breakfast for week 2. Here is breakfast for week 3. This is the sausage gravy over potatoes with that cheese on top. Now for weeks 2 and 3, besides these main dishes I have made, I will probably send along some more yogurt parfaits. Maybe I'll make some protein muffins and send those along. Sometimes I'll cook up some extra protein and send that along with him as well. For week 4, to finish out the month, I am making some baked oatmeal. I love baked oatmeal. It's so versatile, and you can make a million different variations of it. It's a great way to use up some fruits, maybe even some veggies from the freezer. I have a whole bunch from last year's garden. So today we're going to use some zucchini, and we're using some blueberries. So for the base recipe, it is 2 cups of rolled oats, 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, a teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Then for liquids, we need a 3/4 cup of milk of your choice, whether that be dairy-free or regular milk, a 1/3 cup of maple syrup or honey, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1 tablespoon of oil, and then 2 eggs. Now, when baking, sometimes it will be okay to substitute eggs with applesauce. It's a 1/4 cup per egg. Now, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but I have done that with baked oatmeal a lot, and it definitely works out. So if you are short on eggs, substitute a 1/4 cup of applesauce per egg. I added in 1.5 cups of blueberries, frozen, and 1 cup of grated zucchini. You don't want to squeeze out the liquid from the zucchini. This goes into a greased baking dish, either a pie plate. I used a 9-inch pie plate or an 8x8 square baking dish. It will go in at 375 for about 45 minutes. I also decided to make Matt some protein muffins to send along with him to work. I'm going to make these in the blender because we're going to use some cottage cheese. It's 3/4 cup cottage cheese, 3 eggs, 1/3 cup of granular sweetener. They use Swerve. This is a keto recipe. I just used regular cane sugar. 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1 3/4 cup almond flour, 3/4 cup of protein powder. I used Just Ingredients vegan vanilla protein powder, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Blend that up until smooth. So this is a cinnamon swirl protein muffin. And for the cinnamon swirl, you need 1/4 cup butter, 1/4 cup brown sugar, and 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. You want to fill your muffin liners up halfway with the muffin base, and then 1 teaspoon of that cinnamon swirl mixture goes in, and you're going to take a toothpick and swirl it around. You're going to divide what's left of that muffin base over the top of that cinnamon swirl, and then divide the rest of the cinnamon swirl mixture on top of there. Trying your best to swirl that in as much as you can. These will bake at 325 for 15 to 20 minutes. You want them to be puffed up and golden brown. The center might not look super set because of all that butter and the cinnamon swirl mixture, but it will set as it cools. My husband and children tried these muffins and they raved over them, said they were very good, and all of the other recipes are tried and true, so I can say confidently that they are good as well. Alright, my friend, that is all I have for you today. I hope you're leaving feeling inspired. Maybe have a few new breakfast recipes you'd like to try. I know these are going to really help me out. I hope they help you out too. I have all my work done now for me for the entire month, which is so awesome. My husband is still getting good food in his belly for the morning to start his day off right. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, share, comment, subscribe if you aren't already. I appreciate you all so much. You have a blessed day, and I will see you next time. Take care.